What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another review. This time we're taking a look at Sympathy for the Devil, starring Nicolas Cage and Joel Kinnaman, directed by Yuval Adler. The story of this movie is as follows. After being forced at gunpoint to drive a mysterious passenger, Nicolas Cage, a man, Joel Kinnaman, finds himself in a high-stakes game of cat and mouse where it becomes clear that not everything is as it seems. So that's the overall story of Sympathy for the Devil. Let me try and go over this movie as fast as I possibly can, because at the end of the day, I enjoyed this movie. I found Sympathy for the Devil to be very highly entertaining. Yeah, I thought this movie was very entertaining. I thought Nicolas Cage and Joel Kinnaman played really, really well off of one another. Nicolas Cage, as always, puts on a bombastic performance in almost everything he does. This movie is no exception. Nicolas Cage is unhinged. He's off the rail. Every time this man opens his mouth, you can't help but listen to him, because you don't know what crazy nonsense he's going to start spewing out, and you just don't know what direction he's going to take. He's going to take his characters in. Like in this movie, this movie did a really good job at masking the passenger. But when we first see him, he's just this mysterious, unhinged dude who holds some random guy at gunpoint. And throughout the movie, he starts giving out pieces of information, saying that he knows this man, that they have a history together. And it's not till we get to like the third act of the movie where everything gets all revealed where everything gets all revealed. This movie takes a lot of inspiration, or you could say is a downright ripoff of another movie called A History of Violence that was directed by David Cronenberg. I happen to really like A History of Violence. I think that movie is fantastic. Sympathy for the Devil takes a lot of beats from that movie. So like the overall story of A History of Violence is a case of mistaken identity of this guy who lives a very mundane life in a very mundane town, gets a visit by these mobsters, and it's revealed with the course of the movie that this mundane man was actually a mobster himself, but he chose to leave that life behind. Of course, the reason why he left said life behind was because he did something he should not have done. The same thing happens in this movie. Joel Kinnaman, when we first see him, he's just this everyday guy. He's got a pregnant wife with a new baby on the way. He's just trying to, be a family man. Then he runs into this mysterious passenger who starts giving these little stories and these little tidbits of why he's here and the connection between these two. It's revealed that Joel Kinnaman's character of David Chamberlain is actually a man named James Levine, who is somebody who fixes things when things don't go according to plan. So basically, the passenger was a bookkeeper, and he had a wife, who walked in on a murder being committed by a man named Jacob Sullivan. This, of course, turned the wife into a liability, and the Sullivan character, who remains unseen throughout the course of the movie, basically ordered a hit on the man's wife. And this is where the Joel Kinnaman character came into play, as he killed the man's wife, but also killed the passenger's daughter as collateral damage. But this instance is what drove James Levine to want to leave the life behind, because he felt immense guilt about killing a child. And in his mind, the death of his firstborn child was pretty much God punishing him for the sins that he committed. So Joel Kinnaman's character tried to have a form of redemption in a way by leaving his past life behind and trying to start anew and just be a better person in a way. But, those demons do come back to haunt you, and, the devil has come back for Joel Kinnaman in the form of the passenger played by Nicolas Cage. So yeah, the stories are very, very similar in terms of how they're described and how they're said, but it's all in the execution. And I thought the execution for this movie was actually really well done. I thought Yuval Adler, he's no David Cronenberg, but I thought he made a very stylish and very good movie from a production standpoint. Nicolas Cage and Joel Kinnaman are steal every single scene that they're in. This is a two-man movie, and Cage and Kinnaman hold this movie together. They have very, very good on-screen chemistry. Joel Kinnaman's more grounded performance really balances out Nicolas Cage's more flashy, flamboyant performance. And these two guys work fantastically together. And to me, their best scene is in the third act, where they go to this roadhouse diner, where they're just having a conversation about everything. The scene is tensely directed. The dialogue between these guys is a lot of fun. Nicolas Cage is off the rails. He's unhinged. You don't know what his character's going to do. You can clearly tell that the Joel Kinnaman character is, more or less, You can tell he's scared for his life, but he has like this uneasy, but he has an uneasy calmness to him throughout the course of this movie. And that's your first hint that this guy is not who he seems that he is, because the entire time he's with the passenger, you can tell that he's scared, but he has like a calmness to him in a lot of ways, like like he's been here before. And that's your first clue. That's your first hint that this is not what it seems. I liked it. It was fine. It was good. Now, in terms of the action set pieces that this movie has, they're fine for what they are. This is not a very action-heavy movie, and A History of Violence was also not a very action-heavy movie. But A History of Violence had a more visceral nature to it. Like it had more violence subject matter when compared to this movie. That's not to say this movie doesn't have those things. Like you do. Like you have this, you have this intense scene where they get pulled over by a cop for speeding, and the passenger just shoots this cop and just kills him point blank. Then you have the whole scene with the diner where the talking stops and Cage just goes full blown, just starts shooting the place up. He kills a truck driver. He kills the cook. He threatens to kill the waitress. He threatens to kill a mom and her child. And then he starts making some Molotov cocktails, and him and Kimmin have this great chase scene outside the diner with this beautiful orange flaming hue just behind them, which is a really cool visual. Really liked it a lot. And of course, while this is happening, this is where the passenger character continues to tell the bookkeeper story, and more or less his reasoning for coming after this man, as I explained early on in the review. I like all this stuff. I thought it was good. I like the whole subplot of Chamberlain wanting to get to the hospital to see his newborn baby. I wish we actually would have got that scene at the end of him making it to the hospital in all his bloody glory. But that's just me personally. But I do like the scene of him finally at the end, where he says, "Yes, I am who you say I am, but I didn't do the hit on my own. I was ordered to do the hit." And this is eventually what leads to the final showdown, where Chamberlain kills the passenger by choking him out, but also telling him that he felt immense regret that his daughter was caught in the crossfire as collateral damage before killing the passenger. In its own weird way, Chamberlain basically, makes his confession to the passenger as if he's wanting forgiveness for it in a way. That's just how I interpret it. But I like the performance in the last few minutes of this movie altogether. I thought it was actually really well done. Now, like I said, I mentioned that Nicolas Cage was very bombastic in this movie, and he has a lot of scenes in this movie that, yeah, if you watch them isolated, they're fucking a trip. Like, you got this one scene where Nicolas Cage with a bloody nose after he shoots the cop, he's like, "I wanted to be 100% sexy tonight. Now I'm just 50% sexy. What do you think? Still sexy for you?" Like, you got stuff like that. You have a scene where he's in the bar playing with a jukebox and he just starts randomly dancing. You get those Cageisms where he just goes full blown off the wall, and it's always entertaining and always fun to see. If this movie didn't have Cage and Kinnaman, I wouldn't be praising it as much as I am now, to be honest with you, because if these guys weren't in it, this would have been just a throwaway movie that was a blatant ripoff of History of Violence with no style or substance to it. But since you have two very good actors in it, in Cage and Kinnaman, who work really well off one another, like the bombacity of Cage bounces off the stone-walled groundedness of Kinnaman, and you have Yuval Adler, who ain't the strongest, this is the only movie I've ever seen. I can tell he ain't the strongest director when it comes to thrillers, but he also knew, but I'll give the man credit, he knew when to scale up Cage and when to scale down Cage to where it's appropriate. For example, when Cage is going bombast, he's very entertaining to watch. But when Cage scales down, he can come across as pretty intense and not know what the hell's gonna happen. So I like that. This movie played to Cage's strengths as an actor. Like you reel him in when you need the scene, when the scene calls for it, and it works. So yeah. With all that being said, I'm going to give Sympathy for the Devil a solid. I'm going to give it a solid 7 out of 10. I enjoyed this movie. I think A History of Violence, which is the inspiration for this movie, is a much better movie. But for what this movie has to offer, it's very entertaining and it's a lot of fun. So yeah, 7 out of 10 for Sympathy for the Devil. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Like the video and subscribe, and I'll check you back next time for more.